So, we've heard two different stories of the empty tomb so far. In the Gospel of John, John and Peter hear from Mary Magdalene that the stone has been rolled away. They run to see for themselves. They see the empty tomb and then they go home. John continues the story. Mary sticks around, still grieving. She talks to a gardener, wondering, where has the body of Jesus been taken? The gardener calls her by name, Mary. She recognizes Jesus then, and she believes. In Luke, 3 women go to the tomb, the passage Amanda read for us. The women see 2 men dressed in shining clothes. They're frightened and they bow their faces to the ground. They are reminded of some of Jesus' words. They go to tell his followers what they have seen. But the disciples think it's an idle tale. Mark and Matthew are different too. Matthew recounts 2 Marys going to the tomb. There's an earthquake. The stone is rolled back and an angel sits on it. The guards faint. Jesus meets the women, telling them not to be afraid, and to tell his followers to go to Galilee because he will meet them there. In Mark, it's 3 women who go to the tomb. The stone has been rolled away. A young man tells them Jesus has been risen. They also are told to tell the disciples that Jesus will see them in Galilee, as in Matthew. But in Mark, they are so traumatized that they don't say anything to anybody. It's amazing, given the details in these stories, that the message of the empty tomb ever got told. They went home. They said nothing. They thought it was an idle tale. Only in Matthew is there a hint of hope. The disciples are to go to Galilee. Jesus will meet them there. We can see these differences as proof that the story is made up, or at least that it is so tangled that there's no way to know what really happened. Or we can understand that it took the followers of Jesus a long time to come to terms with these events. By themselves, these parts of the story would never have survived. It's what happens afterward that helps Jesus' followers get beyond their expectations and beyond their preconceptions to begin to discover their meaning. They see something amazing. They come to believe. I think at least partly because they wanted to. They share with each other. They take a risk because somehow their hearts are full of hope. And then they spend the rest of their lives telling the story and trying to understand what it meant. On Maundy Thursday, we told the stories of Holy Week with a poetic reading. We placed items on our worship table to represent the events. We remembered the Last Supper, the prayer in the garden, Jesus at trial, the crucifixion. Each scene began, the word was spreading, at first with excitement on Palm Sunday, and then moving toward anger and derision. the word was spreading, "Crucify him." The words at the end of our drama about Holy Week caught my attention. Jesus has been crucified and buried. There was no word. Or was there? There was weeping. There was sighing. Oh, what might have been. Was it all over? It was so quiet we could hear our hearts beat. His heart beat. We could hear our hearts beat. His heartbeat. His heartbeat becomes their heartbeats, becomes our hearts beating. Think back to that echo pantomime we just did. After so much running and slapping our thighs, my heart, at least, was racing. Fast enough that I could feel it beating. They were beating from running, from excitement, from hope and wonder. But what was next? Peter and John went home. The other gospel accounts, the women kept silent, filled with fear. Those first visitors to the empty tomb could hear their hearts beat. His heart beat. But they did not yet understand what that meant. Other than the Gospel of Mark, which ends abruptly, the story goes on after the various experiences at the tomb. In Matthew, there's only the recognition that Jesus is present with them somehow. Jesus then tells them to go to all people everywhere, baptize them and teach them. Jesus promises to be with them always. The baton is passed on in Matthew. The Gospels of John and Luke add fascinating episodes after the resurrection. Both Gospels tell stories of eating together, table fellowship. John tells the wonderful story of the disciples going fishing all night on the Sea of Galilee, catching nothing. Jesus calls to them from the shore, "Have you caught anything? Try throwing the nets on the other side of the boat." The disciples end up catching lots of fish. And when they do, they recognize Jesus. Peter swims ashore. Jesus feeds them bread and fish, freshly cooked on the campfire. There is something about eating and recognizing who Jesus is. Luke also focuses on recognizing Jesus when eating, the Emmaus Road story. Two disciples walking along the road are joined by a stranger who seems to know nothing about what's been happening in Jerusalem. The two followers are trying to understand. They were so hopeful Jesus would be their Messiah, but the powers that be thought otherwise. The stranger opens the scriptures to them, giving them some insight, some connections, an expanded way of understanding. It's evening, so they invite the guest to supper. They know it's Jesus when he breaks bread with them. In the book Recovering Communion in a Violent World, Resistance, Resilience, and Risk, author Christopher Grundy attempts to move communion away from its traditional focus on the crucifixion. With words about Christ's body broken for you, Christ's blood shed for you, we have focused on the violence. In the UCC, we more often use phrases like bread of life and cup of blessing. That's better, says Grundy, less focused on the violence, though he wants to go even further. Looking at what we know of early Christian history, the Lord's Supper took years to settle into its current format, using bread and wine. Different communities did it different ways. Some of them used bread and fish, remembering the feeding of the 5,000 and John's story of serving bread and fish on the seashore. Others used bread and wine. We're even changing these days. We will use bread that is free of gluten, nuts, and dairy. We will use alcohol-free juice. We want to be welcoming to everyone. The elements are still changing. Luke is the gospel where Jesus eats the most. From the feeding of the 5,000 to stories about a wedding banquet to the focus on a feast for the prodigal son, Jesus ate with Pharisees too, and a Phoenician woman. I wish there was a story of Jesus eating with children, but I'm sure there were some in the feeding of the 5,000 crowd. There's something about eating together, something about table fellowship, good conversations, relationships built. I wonder if that's what Jesus had in mind when he told two disciples to go find a place to have the Last Supper. Could have been Passover. That connection may have been added later. Or it could have been that Jesus himself needed one more meal with his friends. I wonder. His friends needed it too. There is strength in these relationships, even if betrayal and denial lurk in the future. They will remember. I think the most important words in our communion liturgy are, remember me. Remember my stories. Remember my love for all kinds of people. Remember how much I love you. Remember. That is what we do when we celebrate communion. We remember his life, his teachings, and his love for everybody. Was it around tables eating together that Jesus' followers shared their experiences after the crucifixion? Did Peter share his sorrow at denying he knew Jesus and then hearing the rooster crow? If he never shared it, how would we know the story? Did John share with the others about running away? Did they remember all the stories of Jesus' healings? How Jesus reached out to the blind, the lepers, and even a woman with a flow of blood, those unclean? Jesus touched them anyway. Did the stories go around about Jesus preaching on the hillside or from a fishing boat? Did they remember how he challenged the Pharisees, but he still had lunch with one of them? Did they reflect on the memory of the tax collector Zacchaeus climbing a tree so he could see? Think about it. That's what we still do when we celebrate the life of a loved one who has died. We tell stories and we eat together. We sit at a table and pass around pictures. Was it there that they heard Jesus' heartbeat again, beating in their own hearts? I wonder. At our Maundy Thursday service, we washed each other's hands. John records this story. Jesus, acting as servant, takes a basin and towel to wash the disciples' dusty feet. These days, it's our hands that need washing. So we tenderly washed each other's hands. At the close of the service, we took a towel and hung it from the arms of the cross. This morning we removed it as we decorated our table for Easter. Now I want to put it back to remind us that we are the servants today. We are the ones who carry the love, the hope, the light. We are the ones with the heartbeat. The resurrection is real in each one of us. Jesus died, but God's Christ-like light, God's Messiah work, did not. Jesus died, but God's covenant work did not. Jesus died, but God's saving grace did not. Jesus died, but the love light that was in him did not go out. Jesus died, but that's not the end of the story. Instead, it's a new beginning. We don't know what really happened that first Easter morning. What we do know is that the heartbeat of God's love and grace continues. After communion, we will sing, "Let us talents and tongues employ." Jesus calls us in, sends us out, bearing fruit in a world of doubt, gives us love to tell, bread to share, God, Emmanuel, everywhere. Jesus lives again, earth can breathe again. Pass the word around, loaves abound. We thank you, redeeming God, for the glorious message that you bring, new hope out of despair, resurrection out of defeat, and new life out of death. Keep our hearts beating with faith and love. Amen.